I don't like how meta this is getting, Rick.
Shut up, Morty. You're 14. You watch videos of people on YouTube reacting to YouTube. I'll be the judge of when we get too meta.
Holy crap. What an episode of Return of Season 4. That went beyond meta, and I had to watch the episode multiple times to fully understand the beats of it and everything going on. It was easily my favorite episode so far of the season, and wow. Look at this guy trying to do another breakdown of Rick and Morty on YouTube. You're not even the first one out, so you're probably just copied everything from people who put out videos that released like 2 hours before yours. This guy again? I don't care if it's been 2 years, where's Buddy? This guy's hair is terrible. Buddy told me he loved me. Also, eat a sandwich, you skinny nerd. What am I watching? Whatever. Let's ignore all that and talk about the return of Rick and Morty with Never Ricking Morty. The episode is titled Never Ricking Morty, this being a reference to the film The Never-Ending Story. The Never-Ending Story is a fantastical story all framed around a child reading a book. Similarly, Never Ricking Morty has an overall framing device of the train for various tales told within. To quickly break down the framing of the episode before jumping into Easter eggs and references, the Rick and Morty we know from previous episodes is framed to be the Rick and Morty who bought a story train from the Citadel of Ricks, which will disregard the fact the Citadel is a dystopian hell, as breaking continuity and canon is kind of the point of this episode. Within the story train exists a universe where the story of Rick and Morty is set on metaphorical and physical wheels, cycling over and over again in a predictable cycle to meet both customer and network demands. This time, the audience wants a Morty's Mind Blowers or interdimensional cable-styled episode, as we've seen in the past 3 seasons. However, this is now predictable, and the Rick within the story train hates that. Everything on the train is about normal storytelling conventions, such as continuity, so Rick literally breaks all of this, destroying any perceived continuity, canon, or anything else. Characters within this framing of a typical Rick and Morty episode give little vignettes, so essentially a mini-story within the story train within the actual universe of the show. Most of the episode takes place on a train, which is similar to Bong Joon-ho of Parasite fame's Snowpiercer, in which social classes are separated by car and a revolt begins. Aesthetically, the two are similar, as well as including various flamboyant train passengers in the different cars. We meet various women who dated Rick. One is a Yoda lady, and another likely based off of the 3-breasted Mars mutant from Total Recall. This wouldn't be the first time Rick and Morty referenced Total Recall, with Total Rickall being a fan favorite from Season 2 that introduced Mr. Poopy Butthole. The main former love interest who gives a vignette is likely based off of the Ice Queen from The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, especially with their ice crown being near identical. Notably, Justin Roiland's first cartoon also happened to parody The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe.
Okay, tickets please, guy. Stop the anthology. If we wanted one-offs, we'd do interdimensional cable, not some uptight overwritten.
So, clear reference to what people were probably thinking at the start of the episode. That being, this was probably going to be this season's interdimensional cable / Morty's Mind Blowers episode, which it still probably is, just with an amazing twist on it.
Here's where the stupid vignettes were. God, imagine if that had been the whole thing.
Rick and Morty are staring at a literal story circle. This is a reference to Dan Harmon, co-creator of the show's Story Circles, which I'll let Dan Harmon explain.
The so-called story circle is my attempt to remove all of the hard and repeated work from the task of breaking a story.
We do an 8-step story process here. I call it an embryo.
So part of this episode is quite literally breaking Dan Harmon's own style of storytelling. After subduing Tickets Please Guy, Rick has to repressurize the cabin by sealing the window. This could potentially be a reference to The Expanse, where they deal with holes in a similar manner. Tickets Please Guy goes through an insane side plot where in his brain, it turns out he was at Blips and Chits for Season 2's Morty Night run. This is, of course, similar to when Morty played Roy during that same episode, living a lifetime as a Roy.
Holy sh**! How is he still breathing?
He's suspended in disbelief, slowly dying while living out an alternative non-diegetic reality.
The definition of diegesis from Wikipedia is a style of fiction storytelling that presents an interior view of a world. So, a diegetic element of a story would be things that happen within a narrative or part of the story, whereas a non-diegetic element could be the form of telling a story as opposed to the narrative itself, or part of the storytelling. In Never-Ending Story, you could say that the story within the book is diegetic, whereas the framing of this story by reading a book is non-diegetic. Typically, the term is used for sound and music. Diegetic music would be coming from a band within a scene, while non-diegetic is the soundtrack music we get from a film. Next, we get another great reference.
Hi, I work with Dave, and I highly recommend him for a job selling turnips on the Animal Crossing stock market.
Thanks for that non-diegetic reference, Mike. I appreciate it. What this all boils down to regarding Tickets Please Guy can be summed up by one high alien.
His followers believe the entire universe is Floaty Bloody Man's nightmare as he dies in a time-dilated reality.
Which turns out to basically be true. So even though we know blips and chits through the normal reality of Rick and Morty, this is all one big nightmare. Returning from the commercial break, another quick vignette shows us the return of Bird Person, who premiered in the Season 1 finale Rixie Business.
I'm a bird and a person and more.
Back on the train, we see a venue where various posters and pictures can be spotted. One is The Sound of Rick, which is a spoof on The Sound of Music. In the far back, two more posters can be spotted, one a reference to Cats, and the other a reference to Phantom of the Opera. Behind the alien on the stage are various pictures of Rick and Morty, which are straight from various episodes. At the bottom is Rick getting Swifty from Season 2's Get Swifty, above to the left is Morty and Fart from Season 2's Morty Night Run, and at the top is Tiny Rick playing a guitar from Season 2's Big Trouble in Little Sanchez. Notably, these characters are dressed up as characters from famous plays. The one in front is from Cats, one is wearing an outfit from Phantom of the Opera, and one is from Hairspray. Rick and Morty make it through the train to find the conductor, Storylord, who's voiced by Paul Giamatti. In duking it out, we see alternate non-canonical realities involving Morty busting through a glass egg into a new reality that's a fake reality, Morty waking up from near death via a defibrillator, and Rick waking up as Professor Sanchez from a drug trip. I love how this whole segment plays off of the wild ideas we all sometimes get about reality. What if all of reality is you stuck inside of a coma? What if it's all one big dream that you're in? Or what if you're part of someone else's dream? In the Professor Sanchez segment of this, Morty returns as a Vietnam veteran who's used Professor Sanchez's mind-bending drug and unsure of what's real. This is likely a reference to the film Jacob's Ladder, a psychological horror film about a Vietnam War veteran who returns from the war and experiences hallucinations that make him question reality. After Storylord captures Rick and Morty, we get a deep look into what the episode is about and how meta it goes. The whole episode is an analogy for writing a Rick and Morty script, dealing with fan expectations and what viewers want, and getting stuck in a formula. We see Storylord, who likely represents a combination of the audience and the network, quite literally sucking Rick and Morty dry of all of their narrative energy and story potential in order to hit mass marketability, broad appeal, and relatability. These things are, of course, referenced by Rick and Morty throughout the episode, with Rick hating the fact they have to do another episode like Interdimensional Cable, as it's what's expected, and the creators going through a slew of writing issues, whether that be going too meta with jokes and needing to pull back, breaking continuity, or frequent references to what's considered canon and what was put in the show just for fun. In this sucked potential, we get to see various examples of what Justin Roiland, Dan Harmon, Ryan Ridley, and the various writers of the show may have had in mind for the direction of Rick and Morty, but were scrapped. Or, alternatively, and what I think is even more likely, these could either be fan theories or even network notes that the team rejected. First, we see Summer going to college with a joke about her being 16 for 16 years. This is basically spoofing on all animated shows where the cast never age, and more than likely particularly hitting on The Simpsons. Rick is showing genuine emotion about this, which in all likeliness is poking fun at the fact that the team probably received notes in fandom wanting to show Rick's growth. It's also a complete and direct contrast to the real drunken mess of a Rick that we see at the end of the episode.
I love you, Morty. Give Grandpa a kiss. Give Grandpa a kiss. Lips if you want. Whatever you're comfortable with. Some cultures do that. That was sweet. Thank you. I love you.
Rick and Morty run into Abradolf Linkler and the party kid from Season 1's finale, Rixie Business, with the episode making random callbacks to old popular characters. This, again, with the return of Snowball fighting off against intelligent cats. Then, we're given every fan's biggest tease and false hope, especially with the trailers to Season 4. We finally get the return of Tammy, Phoenix Person, and Evil Morty with an army of Citadel of Ricks, only for all this to not be canon and a total dig at fans' expectations. For a quick rundown of references and callbacks, Tammy and Summer are having a Star Wars-esque lightsaber battle, Evil Morty's army includes Gazorpians, referencing Season 1's Raising Gazorpazorp, an army of Meeseeks, who are of course a fan favorite, and a Sith Lord version of Mr. Poopy Butthole.
Resist, Morty! Resist before he burns us out!
Again, a fourth wall break with Rick and Morty representing the writers. Rick decides to destroy the ratings of the show by bringing religion into it. After he summons the help of Jesus Christ, we get a number of characters who could be pulled straight from Christian children's cartoons, with the various vegetables being an homage to the Christian children's show VeggieTales. Biblesaurus, meanwhile, could be a reference to Denver the Last Dinosaur. There's also a blue Bible with yellow lines, likely referencing Salty the Singing Songbook, which Everything is Terrible spoofed on. As obscure as this reference may seem, Dan Harmon was a part of Everything is Terrible. The episode wraps up with all of the characters turning out to be toys on a toy train, which is similar to the Twilight Zone episode 5 Characters in Search of an Exit. In this episode, we witness 5 vastly different characters go through an existential hell as they question their existence within a tiny walled-off space. In the end, it turns out they're all toys in the barrel out for sale. Ironically, while Rick's ending diatribe rips on consumerism and mass consumption, there were 2 Rick and Morty sponsored ads throughout the duration of the episode, one for Wendy's and one for Pringles. Rick advertises buying the story train at www.story-train.com, but unfortunately, as of writing this video, while the domain is registered, there's no working website.
Hey, what the Morty? The train you got me just completely derailed itself. There's blood all over the windows
Oh, man,
on it.
I'm sorry, Rick. I guess I'll return it.
Return? Are you insane? Did you hear nothing I said? Buy another one, Morty.
Okay, to get really meta with this joke, I have to wonder if this is actually saying this episode derailed from Dan Harmon's typical story circle. However, Rick tells Morty to go and get a new train, so future episodes will be back to business as per usual. That wraps up Never Ricking Morty. I honestly thought it was the best episode so far of season 4, but I'd love to know what you think, whether you agree with me or not. Really? He's doing one of those typical call to actions in every single YouTube video? Does he even read the comments or care? Why don't you smash that like button? Why don't you subscribe? Typical YouTuber garbage. Yeah, this was actually kind of a pain to edit, at least I'm assuming, as me writing and saying these words all happened before the editing process of the video. But I like the box in the box in the box idea, and I've actually been wanting to do that for a while to spoof on various YouTube React channels, so this was a nice excuse to do that. I'm going to end by going ahead and throwing to some random stuff that I was saying just to keep the dialogue going in those little boxes, and I hope you have a good one. Later, guys. Peace. And I gotta find random things to talk about now because there's gonna be a dude reacting to me, which is just me reacting to myself. And I don't know how long that's gonna go on for, but I gotta just smile and say these random things. Why don't you just say don't subscribe to me? Because then it's reverse psychology,